People living in small towns, what's the recent scandal? Disclaimer, not a small town scandal, just neighborhood news. A gang was trying to extort a grocery store owner. They spray painted a threat on the side of his building and showed up the next day when employees were cleaning it off. The grocery store owner goes back inside, grabs a gun, and shoots one of them. Also, my brother-in-law found a lost cell phone while he and my husband were jogging. As they got home the cell phone rang. My brother-in-law answered, and it was the police. A smoke shop had been robbed and the robbers took all the employees' cell phones so they couldn't call the cops and ditched them a few blocks away, and they wanted to collect it for evidence. A few days ago, Amber Alert sent out an emergency message about a fellow in a green car who had stabbed his girlfriend and stolen their baby out of San Jose, which is 3 hours north of us. Lo and behold, the guy was caught right at our own downtown gas station when the kidnapper accidentally locked the baby and his keys in his car, which drew attention to him. A good Samaritan from an entirely different town, a tourist, put the puzzle together, and put the guy in a headlock until the authorities arrived. A local police department likes to post wanted pictures on its Facebook page. The other day, I saw one of their crappy wanted postings of some woman who is allegedly evading police for drug charges and intends to distribute. The suspect herself commented on the post and said, "I'm not evading, I'm not on the run, I've been out of town, and when I come back I'm turning myself in." Maybe not a scandal, but I thought that was pretty funny. It'd be funny if she was on the run but still commenting. We had one of those in my town. The guy was taunting the police non-stop in his comments. Forward to a week later and they post a mugshot of the guy crying cause he got caught. My grandfather comes from a small town with less than 5,000 people and it is kind of spread around into smaller districts. So essentially his district has about 500 people and the bakery turns into a bar at night. I grew up going there at least twice a month until I was 14. And once a month until I moved abroad for a while. Despite being such a small town, and greeting the mayor who was the local butcher every time my family needed to buy something, the butcher shop was also the second biggest market in town. We had big town issues. One of the biggest issues was corruption, and since the town planned on expanding, was building a new public school and whatnot, they got some extra funds from the state. Our friendly butcher mayor decided to crack down on the folks that were stealing public money, and he ended up being shot to death by two men in a motorcycle in front of his 6-year-old while they played in a park near one of the main squares. I was in town that weekend and everyone was instructed to lock all windows and doors since the two men weren't caught. All lights were out by 7 p.m. and I could not think of a more terrifying evening. All my time spent there with the exception of when 3 years later a jaguar decided to visit me at midnight in the little bedroom outside the main farmhouse. Okay, so our last mayor decided to not run this year because he's been in the news a lot for threatening to kill his neighbor's dog, as well as just threatening the neighbor in general. Wasn't faring well for him. So a friend of his who was a very well-known socialite and realtor decided to run in his place. Well, my city is sort of small, and the people who have lived here a while would like to keep the houses from being built pretty much on top of each other. So she quickly found herself opposed, with the competition's platform built around preserving the natural land we have left and dumping old, earmarked projects that were planned literally 20 years ago that no one wants anymore. Surprisingly, yet not surprisingly, her opponent won, and right after the opponent took office, she began pushing through decades-old earmarked land sales and making new land sale negotiations, the exact opposite of her platform. Like mayor just means honorary realtor or something. People very much badly want her head on a platter. The population here is completely furious. I got two. First one is happened almost 2 years ago about a girl in one of my classes. She was in lockdown because her parents didn't trust her because she did some things. Well, this girl is adopted. She quit coming to school and we found out she had been homeschooled. Well, no one really heard from her from then on. So one day everyone hears that when her mother came home from work she walked in on her and her husband doing it in the bedroom. She was devastated. She kicked him out and the girl, she filed for divorce. The man who is in his late 40s decides he doesn't want his wife anymore. He left her, bought a new house and is living with a girl now. They're in a relationship since then. Second one happened last year when the football coach got arrested for sending a minor nudes and inappropriate messages vice versa with the girl. The cops had the girl's phone in custody when he sent one to her phone. It was so shocking because he was so well respected. His last name is one of those names that was instantly respected in the school town. He has children that do sports and are also a big deal, so when this came out it hit them. But they weren't mad at their dad, they were mad at the girl for getting their dad arrested. His daughter said, quote, "When I see that I'm going to bleep. That girl didn't come to school in a while. But everyone in the school didn't mention it, but we all knew. We knew from the secret whispers in the news." All in all, he isn't allowed to go to any school town gatherings. He had to register as a sex offender. Girls from my small town have taken to Twitter recently to expose a pretty well-known guy in town. He is notoriously known for being a player and messing around with girls on a daily. He is also known for stealing and being racist at times. We'll call him Martin. One girl started a massive chain effect by tweeting out of pictures of Martin and her texts with him where he uses the N-word. He is incredibly white. So big no. Another girl chimed in by saying that Martin also posed as her uncle's son when her uncle was dying in the hospital in order to steal his wallet and all his belongings. Then another girl added on by tweeting that Martin also harasses girls at parties and over the internet, including her. Over 50 girls messaged her, recounting their stories with Martin. 16 girls came forward to say that he raped them. Only 2 of them went to court. Martin won both times due to lack of evidence. There weren't even rape kits performed on these girls who went straight to the police. So these girls are posting on social media to raise awareness and to get something done about this guy. You can see his overdue karma is clearly coming. So many people in my small town have spoken up about it. But there's also a lot of people making excuses for him and blaming the girls who are making a stand, saying they're chasing clout. Kinda hard to watch, but I'm glad that something is being done about it instead of just silence. Some frequent at a smoothie shop didn't pay. She said she'll be back and went across the street to her workplace. She never came back to pay, so the shop called the work to be like, yo. So she had to do the walk of shame back to the smoothie place. Got heated on Facebook. The shop had to show security footage. Classic crazy Karen versus inexperienced business owner. A local dude got sent to a maximum security prison for breaking into his own house. Granted, it was condemned and that was his fault because drugs. But still, dude needed a place to sleep. It was like 10 degrees. He needed to be taken into custody, but rehab would have been a better place for him. It was his second or third brush with local cops, so they went pretty hard on him. His whole life has been one shit show after another, and IDK if anyone could help him at this point, but it just doesn't seem humane to send a guy to the pen for needing a warm place to sleep. Somebody in town has a bunch of mannequins in their front yard. I love that every town seems to have that weird art person who decorates their yard. Sometimes it's incorporated into the driving directions. Like take the first left after the carousel horse house and every local knows exactly what's up. A pigeon got caught in the supermarket and it made front page of local news website with live updates. I am hollering live updates. Genuine quotes. 13:30. No word on how the pigeon is getting on. 14:02. Update: a security guard is currently attempting to capture the pigeon with a net, but it isn't going very well. 14:10. Store manager has declined. Small town newspaper. S request for comment. 14:50. Pigeon is freed. In caps. My small town includes a pretty large zoo and a tapir has recently escaped and is still at large. This reminds me, once in the city I used to live, a red panda escaped on his first day of being in his new enclosure. It was a big city and all the trains were shut down because they thought they had seen him next to the train tracks. Turned out that he was just sleeping in a tree next to the enclosure. I'll never forget the day a tiny little red panda shut down the whole train traffic because he was sleeping in a tree. Not really recent, but the owner of the petting zoo turned out to be a serial murderer and buried 2 corpses under the goat enclosure. A lot of kids volunteer there and walked over them unknowingly. He murdered the couple and used their house, car and money. Edit. He murdered more people before this couple, that's why I called him a serial killer. I left my small town years ago, but I was home over Thanksgiving and got an earful. The local grocery store was renovated, expanded after 30 years, and now everything's moved and you can't find nothing. I was home for 4 days and literally every new social interaction with people in town involved the goddamn grocery store and how awful it is now. Spoiler, it actually looks quite nice and they hang signs over the aisles telling you where things are, you know, like a grocery store.